Bookmark is brought to you by the state of Ukraine. Remember us? We're still here, now celebrating 1 year of war. And by Car Tippers, the derailing company. And viewers like you. Thank you. Hello, hello.
Hello.
How's everybody? Let's see those. There's those jellyfish.
How's everybody doing today?
Hope you're doing well.
if
I am going to open up the...
Let us know if you can hear us or if you can't hear us.
Yeah.
That would be helpful. While I check the feed and the audio levels on everything.
Bring this over so I can bring up the chat. There we go.
Hi, Robert. Thanks for joining. Can you hear us okay? Let us know.
I think everything, yeah. I mean, I checked levels before we went on. But anyway, hello, Rockfin. I'm sure there's been some people out there in Rockfin land. And Colleen says, I hear you.
Oh,
Hooray.
thank you. Thank you for
Yay.
that.
Okay, good. So hello, Facebook. Hello, Rockfin. Hello, YouTube.
Substack.
Hello, Substack. Hello, Twitter. The Twitterati in a couple channels. So yeah, so we've got some folks on YouTube, Facebook.
Hey, Josette, how are you?
The folks on Rockfin cannot participate in the
in the chat. We have to look separately.
They have to, yeah.
I can go over to Rockfin and feel that right now.
Yeah, I don't know if there's anyone watching, but anyway, so well, I'm glad to see you all. Thank you for joining us this lovely Saturday in Pittsburgh, which is an unusual thing to say.
Sunday.
It's a Sunday? Oh, it's a Sunday. Did I say Saturday?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well,
that's okay.
We usually do it on Saturdays, so that's why I'm going there.
I don't mean to be rude, but
yeah, well,
I have to go through and do some technical stuff.
Fine. That's fine.
While we do this.
And I hope the weather is nice where you are. Anyway, today we've got an action-packed show.
Action-packed.
Not really. We got some things to talk about.
Action-packed.
Action-packed. And it's just been a shit show, like ever since 2020, right? Ever since 2020.
Ever since 2001, actually. I mean, if you really want to get
technical. Well, I mean,
there is
ever since 1776.
I know, right? Ever since 1776, it's been a shit show in this country. For those who are tuning in from outside of the border.
Right.
We don't have to tell you that.
Yeah. Well,
right?
Anyway, so there's lots going on. I hope you liked our new sponsors.
I don't know if they caught that. I almost want to play it again.
I know, right?
It came so fast. I almost missed it. It was really funny.
Yeah.
And you worked really hard on that.
I know. Well, I'm sure
design skills.
I'm sure people saw it. Well, let us know if you saw the intro or not.
Yeah. Also, let us know how you heard about us, maybe. Because we've been extending our reach. First thing I want to do is thank our patrons for sharing our work. It's because of you that the latest video essay that I made, War Crimes, which I dropped on January 1st, it's because of you that it's
reaching so many people,
more views than anything we've made, and so I really appreciate that. We also we got some honorable mentions on the Lou Rockwell site, so I want to thank Lou Rockwell for hosting the video essay War Crimes. Catherine Watt and Sasha Latyapova also shared the video essay War Crimes on their private channels, and so that that was an enormous honor to have them do that. So I really want to thank them for that. And there are so many people that there are so many
Yeah.
there are so many people that have shared the video essay that I made that there's too many to mention, but one person in particular did reach out to us this week. He's one of the writers for LifeSite News, which is a Catholic-based platform, and he featured the video essay that I did, New Constitution, Living War Crimes. He featured it on his platform as well. So I keep wondering, it's like, wow, so many people are viewing this, and the view count keeps getting higher and higher. And I'm like, how is that possible? Because I've kind of moved on and I'm focusing on other topics right now. And I'm working on another video essay right now, kind of putting the thoughts together around that. See, Colleen missed the intro.
Yeah, so I'll share that in a minute. Go ahead and finish your thought.
But so I hadn't even been really sharing it. And, I go and I look at it and it's got a certain amount of views. And maybe a week later, I'll look at it and it's got, 2,000 more views than what it had just from a week ago. So clearly it's being shared by all of you. And so I really appreciate that. I wanted to just, let you know that really means something to me. We don't have like a marketing department. We don't even have anybody to help us with technical stuff. We do everything on this platform, just me and him. And so it takes a lot of time and energy and money and research and, energy to do that without any kind of support staff.
We
So
are the support staff.
It's just us. And so that's why I really rely on our patrons and our followers and our friends to get our stuff out there. It's because of you that we've become more noticeable. And we've, other people who have done podcasts about, what's going on in the world have mentioned us, like Christiane Northrup mentioned a couple of years back, mentioned communitarianism, which was incredibly helpful to get that message out there as well. There's a lot of different types of issues that are taking place in the world right now. And so we are describing those issues through our own intuitive experiential knowledge about the way the world works. And it's not something that you would normally hear from many of the platforms that you're following. And JP seems really anxious to
No, I'm not.
replay
No,
what you all may have missed.
You are anticipating you seem to be thinking that I'm not. I'm just letting you talk.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to say that without our audience and without our patrons and without our fans and followers, we wouldn't be here.
Right.
Like we would just be speaking to brick walls. So thank you for that. And thank you for tuning in. And so now you can replay your little
since a few people didn't see it, let me just share this.
Bookmark is brought to you by the state of Ukraine. Remember us? We're still here. Now celebrating 1 year of war. And by Car Tippers, the derailing company. And viewers like you. Thank you. Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Oh my
So
God.
sorry about that. Let me
Yeah.
repeat what I just said.
Yeah.
First of all, I hope everybody enjoyed that intro that we just did, sponsored by Car
Yeah, we got
Tippers
some pretty heavy hitters there.
and Ukraine. So
I had to mute because the speakers, we hear the
right.
speakers, you'll
So
hear the speakers.
let us know
Yeah.
if you did see the intros that we
No, they
played.
heard. I'm sure they heard the
Well,
intros.
just let us know. And if you didn't, we can do it again for a third time if you want.
Anyway.
So the point is that somebody had tweeted that number 23 was the reason that the rail car number 23 was the reason that
the biggest spill.
the axle was off the tracks, which is what caused the derailment. Okay.
Yeah.
So number 23, of course, means chaos. And of course, we're in the year 2023.
Yes,
so,
it
so
was
Matt,
very
can
PBS.
you tell me what you mean? It sounded very PBS.
Yeah,
right.
it
Well,
was
that
very
was the whole
PBS.
point. The whole point is that, I mean, that was sort of the original concept of us, right? Is that we were going to be
like a parody of that.
like a parody of like a mainstream, mainstream platform, and just but so many people have done that anyway,
Right.
and then it sort of became like a parody of a parody of a parody,
Well,
and then it became real, and then it was like, okay, now these like people like Stu Peters,
I know he's kind of a parody of himself.
he's kind of a parody of a parody of a parody.
Oh my God, it's the Chinese Communist Party.
But then he's like, I don't know. But then he's like, wait, am I watching mainstream news? Like, there's some people that are actually so good at the broadcasting aspect of
Well, because there's a lot of
this.
people that came out of that world, right?
Exactly. And they were canceled. So they had like Emerald, I forget her name, but she used to be mainstream, and then they kicked her out because she had a thought and believed a thing, and so they kicked her out for that, and she had to create her own platform, and so she takes all of her her training in broadcasting and brings it to her platform. So it's like why would we do that?
Well, didn't you tell me that Stu Peters was once a bounty hunter?
He was once a bounty hunter.
Well,
Yeah.
We're not bounty hunters, we're not broadcasters, we are artists, but
we're like a little bit of everything, I think.
Okay.
So we're the people that you want to hang out with.
Yeah.
Most likely. Because we're just like normal,
You speak for yourself.
But
anyway.
so well, you know what I mean. Like, you can come have a beer with us. Can you imagine trying to have a beer with Stu Peters?
No,
or worse yet, like a cup of coffee, he'd spin out.
Spin out, yeah, because he's so hyped up. Anyway,
so
okay.
But the point that I was trying to make earlier is that the rail car number 23 apparently went off the axle, and then it was like, if you follow the provenance of that particular number 23 rail car, it's like funded by Sunoco. Okay, and then if you follow that, like
the chain of ownership,
it suddenly was like,
so okay.
I don't know.
So last night when you told me that, I was like, okay.
I mean, it could be real.
I know, but it's unlikely. I mean, it just sounds like people making shit up.
No,
right?
actually, I think what it was is if you count the first rail car and you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's the 23rd one, because like he was telling me.
Right. So the numbering system on rail cars is not going to be 23. It's going to be 6, maybe 6 digits, right?
6 digits, like a license plate.
Yeah, like a license plate, something like that, so that they can anyway. Yeah. So all right. So I thought you were going to go into like sort of this, like, if you add up this number and that number and you get okay, so it was the 23rd car in the I
believe that's in the chain.
In the chain. Oh my God. Yeah. Okay. Well, whether that's true or not, that's a good story.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Stepling retweeted it.
Did he? Yeah. Yeah. Usually he's like not very big on
conspiratorial.
Doing stuff like, yes, conspiratorial.
But I don't think it was conspiratorial, because this person was like, look, I'm going to follow the background of this.
So speaking of the oil spill, or not the oil spill, the Ohio spill. Let's not get them mixed up. The Ohio spill. So we are about an hour away from New Palestine.
East Palestine.
Or sorry, East Palestine, right? Not New Palestine. We are about an hour's drive from that little town here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And we are upriver from them, so we aren't getting the spill in the water, but we are downwind of them. so
any toxins that are floating in the air will come our way.
Now, we haven't had any problems yet. Our little cat Roxy suddenly became kind of dizzy. What's her little? What's the thing you described? Ataxia. Yeah.
I mean, I just diagnosed her off the internet.
So we gave her some charcoal and some activated. No, not briquettes. We used activated charcoal.
Well, and then after we gave her some activated charcoal, we put it in a little syringe and we shoved it in her mouth. She perked up right away. Like, so there was some sort of toxic thing happening in her, which was causing her to so she's walk and stumble over.
She's still dealing with it a little bit, but anyway, that's who knows if it's related.
So if your kitty cats look like they're drunk, then just give them some activated charcoal. They probably have some sort of toxic reaction going on. Yeah.
And so was there anything else you wanted to talk about Ohio?
Well, oh man. It's kind of weird because it took Donald Trump going to this little impoverished town and to make a statement to have the people who should have been there from the beginning, like Pete Buttigieg and the governor of Ohio. It took Donald Trump to do that. It was signaling. Do I really think that Donald Trump cares about these people?
No,
probably not.
Don't. I think that it was,
but I have to give some sort of a credit because we're talking about a guy that sits on golden toilets, right? or tweets on, or he used to tweet on golden toilets, and he went to the most impoverished area of the country, a flyover country, where it's probably not much different than where we live, where there's
a lot of blight.
Well,
the mayor looked like he lives around here.
Yeah.
If you ever saw photos or video of the mayor of East Palestine.
Poverty does not make beautiful people.
Yeah.
So,
but I mean, he looked like
it's not their
local,
fault.
Right? No, I'm just saying that the towns are very similar. So where we live and where they live, or their town and our town are very similar, and the people, and since the people are so the mayor is of the people.
Right. So if I was somebody like Donald Trump, who spent my last campaign going, make America great again, and wanting to put pride back into the American consciousness and be proud of your country and proud of your history and all that, and proud of your infrastructure. And I went to East Palestine, Ohio. If I was Donald Trump, I would be mortified. I would be like, where are all these people's tax dollars going?
Right.
The streets are rubbled out. The buildings are blighted. Whether you have a train derailment or not, there's still toxins in the area in general. The water's bad.
There's toxins around here.
Where's the money going?
We're dealing with 100 or plus years of steel production and coal burning and coal.
Right.
I mean, they used to. I mean, coal was actually mined here in Pittsburgh. Our street nearby Carson, which is also kind of a highway. There's sheer cliffs along Carson, West and East Carson. I guess more along West Carson, and that's where coal mining took place. Long before anything. So this area has always been a very toxic kind of place because of the industry, right? So there, this whole region is a result of that.
Right.
That's why they were calling it the Rust Belt for so long.
Right.
Right.
So it must have been a real shock to him to see that, to stand in the midst of that kind of poverty.
And then a Pennsylvania senator went and grandstanded there too.
Right.
Mastriano.
Mastriano went, and then there was another another guy that went
I think
there.
there was a
He went-
U.S. senator from Ohio who did a video.
where he played around in the water.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
whatever. You know, it's so I don't even know what to think at this point. It sounds
We-
like a bit of political game playing going on.
You know, I think. Well, okay, let's talk about this, because we have debated back and forth for the last 2 weeks about, you know, the ins and outs of this thing, whether it was, you know, planned, whether it was accidental, whether whatever. But I think that I want to go to where Dr. What's her name? Dr. Merritt. Lee Merritt. Is
Yep.
that her name?
Yep.
We don't have her video here because it's a little long, but
It's 15 minutes.
Yeah, she was talking about how, you know, it's not as bad as everyone says it is. She's like, I went into the chemistry. I went and looked at all the science, you know, of the chemistry, the chemicals that were spilled. And yes, there's a lot of nasty shit. And yes, they burn shit. But it's not the kind of fallout that you may think. We saw was it a Substack where a guy was saying, oh, there's reports of acid rain in the, you know, everywhere east of the Mississippi.
Wow.
And yeah, and she mentioned that too. She's like, no, there, you know, this is not something that creates acid rain. This is, you know, stuff it does break down. She was also saying, you know, when they were burning that, yeah, it does cause PCBs, but so does burning garbage in your backyard, which is something we never were able to do in California. You're not allowed to burn your leaves or even garbage in the backyard.
Right.
But in Pennsylvania, it's a normal practice, or it used to be anyway. I don't know if people still do it.
Right.
And some journalists got arrested. Yeah. So, you know,
right. And
you
then
know,
the journalist
there's the journalist getting arrested. So I don't, you know, we don't know, you know, what all that shit show was all about. But, you know, I guess it's happened long enough from where we're doing our broadcast that we don't really have a lot more to say about it. We kind of just put it in here because Lee Merritt's Dr. Lee Merritt's statement, we agree with her. We don't always agree with her.
And so the point that I think that we're trying to make is that since the COVID operation was deployed officially in 2020, the thing that I have been repeating over and over again is that your life is a series of little 9/11s. And so think of what 9/11 is. You know, think of what it is. You know what it is. You know that it's not what the official reports tell you it is. You know that it was something else. You know that it was a combination of many different factors to make it happen. You know, and we even go so far as to say that there was weather manipulation going on and weather weaponization. And so you had, you know, the steel industry was involved because they were suddenly dropping the price of steel right before 9/11. You had, you know, you had certain things going on inside the buildings in order to weaken the infrastructure of the building. So when they weaponized it and turned it into something that was almost magical, it could be easier to take down the buildings. Like we know that it wasn't
what they say
it wasn't brown people with box cutters taking over airplanes. Like we know that. So your life from this point forward is a series of 9/11s, like very calculated, orchestrated events. Some of them seem a little wacky, like they've just taken spaghetti and thrown it to the wall and see if it sticks. You know, some of it's very, very organized. And so there's that's what this whole hybrid warfare that we're in is about.
We talk a lot about hyper-normalization, right? Where you've got, you know, one agency putting out both sides of the propaganda and to keep people confused and off their guard, right? And I think that even if this was an accident, right, that that these agencies or those actors of the state are deliberately putting out information, because if you remember, they were putting out information that it was conservatives that were making a big deal out of the extent and the danger of the spill, right? And going off their rails, the use of pun, sorry, you know, just by, you know, being like extra, you know,
being conspiratorial and talking about it that way. And then on the liberal side, they were kind of like ignoring it and playing up the reaction of the reactionaries. But then, once other things started coming into play, then it was the liberals that kind of started paying attention to it. And then now we have, a very conservative pundit, Dr. Lee Merritt, come out and say, yeah, it isn't really as bad as everyone says it is.
Because it's another COVID-like operation.
And I'm not saying that she's part of the hypernormalization, but I am saying that, this thing has been manipulated. And she's like, I feel like she's one of the voices of reason in this case.
Right. In this case, yeah. I mean, if you just take the COVID operation and apply that same kind of core policy or processes and marketing and apply it to everything in your life, then it would make more sense.
Mm-hmm.
You hype up a situation, and in this case, it's a train derailment. And they hyped up a situation which they fabricated, which was that we were told something came out of Wuhan or whatever. You hype it up and you get people to notice it. And then you say, oh, as a result of that thing, this other thing happened. And so people are then, go to that thing and they get all excited. And then that thing causes something else. And, oh, but we have a solution for that thing. So, and then the solution is the problem,
right.
And in between that sort of 4-pronged scenario is, more BS. It's more conversations like, oh, let's insert another story about East Palestine that, months prior to the derailment, the leadership of East Palestine, or at least the nurses had, just for East Palestine itself, had incorporated or adopted a medical monitoring system.
Yeah, I think it was a state program that was being rolled out in East Palestine.
Okay.
Right? Yeah.
Okay. Well,
yeah. All the same, it doesn't matter.
East Palestine. So everyone went, ooh, it's a conspiracy because they conspired to roll out this medical, monitoring program. And then wouldn't you know it, they created a chemical disaster, which is going to force people to run into the medical monitoring program. And really the program itself is like,
it's nothing.
It's not really like, what you think.
It's a rubber band. It's just like any of those silicone bands. It's just basically it has a QR code.
It does.
And you put the information into the system.
You're in control.
So you basically you get the band, you QR code it, you put it in yourself, and it's just basically a database.
So like this whole entire thing, this whole sort of medical tyranny that we're under is really by choice. You can choose to be a part of it, or you can choose to not be a part of it.
Yeah. Well, but the thing is it's also much worse than we think, because there's a lot of stuff that's going on in the background,
right.
That not a lot of people are paying attention to. So some of the things that you've been saying to me this last week is, everybody's focused on this one thing, but really what the other, what they should be focusing on is something else. Example, all the pundits that we've been watching lately are focusing on the World Economic Forum and Klaus Schwab. And I don't have my Klaus Schwab mask handy, so I can't do that. But Julie keeps saying it's not that organization that starts with a W.
It's the other one.
The other one. It's the WHO that we need to be worried about.
Yeah, the WEF is really nothing, guys. Like, I really don't get it why people think that it's all that.
Yeah,
like,
I know.
It's not that scary. It's basically just marketing.
Right.
So here's Tedros.
Yeah, I'm not going to share that yet.
Oh, we're not going to share it yet.
I just want to make sure it didn't start. I want to. Oops, sorry. I guess that was on screen. Okay. Well, anyway.
Whatever. We can play it. So the World Health Organization is, part of the United Nations. 194 countries have already signed up to follow the World Health Organization's regulatory oversight. Okay. So they're already there. So this idea that, oh my goodness, a pandemic treaty, well, it's kind of like already there. What you really need to focus on are the regulations themselves, and how your own leadership, whatever country you're in. I'm in the United States. So Congress has, you know, waived its power. They took a piece of paper and they said, okay, we're going to waive our power and hand it over to the World Health Organization. So that's what happened. And so as a result, whatever the World Health Organization says in their international health regulations is what will then trickle down into your local communities.
Yeah.
You know, and it's going to be really subtle.
Yeah.
It's going to be really subtle.
We're going to look at some funding of the World Health Organization in a second.
So where does the World Economic Forum factor into this?
Well, I think that the World Economic Forum is basically the marketing department
to make it all seem really cool.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
And you're smart enough; you don't fall for that.
They're the marketing firm, right? So for the billionaire globalists, it's the globalist marketing department.
Really, and it's just an excuse for them to, go and have fancy cocktails and fancy dinners and pat each other on the back and congratulate themselves on being masters of the universe.
Right. And I think they do shit like, we're only going to hire pilots who haven't been vaccinated just to like crank people up and get them all upset.
They're not, it's not, I can't believe the mundane BS that people focus on.
Well,
I mean, social media has become
though,
such a shit show.
The thing is, we always say it's the mundane you need to worry about, not the stuff that's like, it's spooky. It's like Klaus Schwab is like Dr. Evil, right? And he's like, yeah, she will own nothing.
Yeah, it's just
that's the wrong, that's the wrong imitation. But you know what I'm getting at.
He's just a character. He's not really. He doesn't have any power, and neither does Yuval Noah Harari. He doesn't have any power either.
Right.
The people that have power are like the people that are, signing on the dotted line for your community to sign up to wraparound services that are part of the international health regulations that, will ultimately keep you in a system of constant, surveillance and control based on your health status. And it's really subtle.
One of the things you've mentioned, and you mentioned it in your video, War Crimes, is that Javier Becerra has more power.
Yeah, Javier Becerra has more power than
even Biden.
Yeah.
Well, let's play this video.
Okay, you all know who Tedros is. He's the general director of the World Health Organization.
Yeah. Okay. Let's share it. I know it's cold in here. And let's play it. The last one played by itself. Oh.
You know what you're doing?
No, I don't. All right, we'll stop.
It's been a while since
I know. We don't do this enough
This
anymore.
week, WHO member states are hosting discussions on amendments to the international health regulations. Next week, countries will begin negotiations on a zero draft of the new pandemic accord. These discussions will be crucial for building a more effective health security architecture for the future, grounded in international law, equity, and the fundamental right to health for all people. This week, WHO member states are hosting discussions on amendments to the international.
Okay. All right. So that's Mr. Tedros there. Thoughts?
Well, I mean, he throws out the term equity. So equity means like when you're, do you remember that meme? And you talked about this before. Remember that meme that was trending? And it was really trending hard during the Sanders-Clinton showdown. Remember that?
Right, yeah.
And everybody was saying things like, we need equality or we need equity or something.
Yeah,
and
they don't need equality. We need equity.
So you had a tall person, a medium-sized person, and a little person, a short person, a shorter person trying to see over the fence, right? And the tall person could just stand on the ground and see over the fence. And the medium-sized person needed like a little box to stand over the fence. And then the short person needed like a bigger box to stand to see over the fence. And so everybody had equal footing so that they could see over the fence and reach to what was over the fence and reach for that opportunity. Right.
Right.
So equity is cut off the tall person's leg. and nobody sees over the fence.
You know, the illustration was that equality was all the same size box.
Right. And so the tall person is like, what the fuck?
Yeah, that's
But I actually think equity really means cutting off the
or
tall person's leg.
The tall person stand in a hole.
Right. Or stand in a hole or get on their knees, you know, so they can't see over the fence. So nobody has an opportunity. That's equity. So when Tedros says, you know, we want to, you know, support equity in these international health regulations, that's what he means.
Well, I have a quote here from Helen of Destroy. She said, equity is newspeak, meaning equality of the outcome rather than equality of opportunity. So, you know, when it comes down to it, we're talking about, you know, opportunity as opposed to outcomes. And so the reason equity plays well in the corporate world and the international, you know, political world is because it's a way of it's another form of conformity, right? It's a way of measuring things in a way of like bringing people down, because none of us can be special, right? No one's allowed to be special anymore.
Please. Yeah, I know.
And so, and especially in a corporate environment, or, you know, in politics, right? The only people that are allowed to be special are the ones that are tagged to be special, like you know, your Obamas and your Clintons and stuff, right? And so everybody else. So the idea of, you know, equity is to reduce everybody's special qualities and their and make everybody, you know, have to basically operate the same way. So if you're faster than somebody else, you've got to slow down so that people can catch up to you in that race, right? You know, you can't have you know, anyway, so that's
slow down.
I know, right? Don't be brilliant. So
don't be brilliant.
Don't be brilliant.
And so this is weird to you because you've been told by your parents, who probably loved you. Not sure what that's like, but you know, I never experienced that. But you, our audience, have probably been told by your parents that, you know, be the best you can be, reach for the stars. Here's, you know, a bunch of money to go to college, and here's all the support, and here's, you know, whatever you want. We'll give you horseback riding lessons. We'll give you ballet lessons. We'll send you to cooking school. We'll do whatever you want. Like, you had parents that did that. Be the best you can be. You have a passion about something, go for it. Follow that passion. You know, it's the classic cliche American attitude, right? And so now what's happening in the COVID operation is that's all gone away, and you're being told, no, hold yourself back. You don't want to make the other person feel bad, because, you know, you're taller than them, and you can reach for the apple on the tree. What you need to do is cut yourself off at the knees so that you can't reach the apple, in order to make it so that shorter person doesn't feel bad.
Right. So we'll just all wait for that apple to drop.
Yeah, we'll just wait for the apple to drop, you know. And so you've been told this your whole life, this thing about, you know, be the best you can be. If you work hard and go to school and get the education and get the degree and all this, then certainly you will have success and you'll have the best that life can offer. Well, all of that has been reversed and inverted somehow. And so you're very confused. We're not because we never had that.
Well, okay. So let's get away from
that's why you love us so much.
So let's get into the equity, or not away from the equity, and then more into like what he was talking about. So it's just an ad. It's just marketing text. Okay. So he's talking about, you know, international law and setting things up, and I think that's what you were getting into in war crimes.
Oh, sure, yeah,
right,
yeah.
And do you want to watch it again and just kind of real quick, like?
No, I don't want to watch. I mean, it's been trending. That
well, what else has been said? What else did he say then?
Well, then he talked about the international health regulations. He talked about the zero draft. So can you explain what a zero draft is?
And I have no idea what
you told me before. What you said it was like the draft before the draft.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Oh, okay. Yeah. So the zero. Yeah. So I'm like, what? It's sort of, yeah. Okay. I see what you're saying. I did say that. Zero draft. Yeah. So it would be basically, you know, the pre-draft, the things that you do, the things that you get together and kind of draft together in order to understand what it is you're going to put in your first draft. Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So, you know, and there's going to be a series of meetings. So the first meeting took place this past week, and then there will be another series of meetings, I think in March maybe, and then another one in April, and then they're going to have the World Health Assembly, I believe, in July, and they're not actually going to cement any of the updated health regulations probably until 2024. So they're giving us plenty of time to go and burn the motherfucker down. Like, they're giving us time to say, no, we're not doing this.
No, we're not doing that.
So,
What,
you know.
So do you know anything about like what's being kind of included?
Oh, God, this is where you would want to talk to Catherine Watt for sure. Well, yeah. Oh, the National Conference of State Legislators, which we don't have the website here to show you, but the National Conference of State Legislators was showcased in the video essay War Crimes, and it gives you some insight into what each state will do if you
Disobey,
push back against quarantine initiatives or quarantine mandates or
any
health
mandates.
Mandates. There's punishment, So a couple years back, they were like, go get your vaccine or go quarantine, and we'll give you, like, if you quarantine yourself, Amazon was giving you like 20% off of all of the of all of your orders, right? And so they incentivized you for quarantining.
Free hamburgers,
free hamburgers if you get your COVID shot, free donuts and stuff like that. That's all. That was just to.
But if you didn't,
butter you up,
right? But if you didn't, you couldn't go see a concert or a show, or you couldn't do this, or you couldn't do that.
So that
or you
was
couldn't
just
have Thanksgiving with your family,
right? So the National Conference of State Legislators, quarantining and health policies, and it's in there, is sort of a messaging to let you know that eventually these are hoping to be cemented. Some of them already are, believe it or not. But especially I think in New York.
But on the international set, they need to start setting these things into motion in order to align them all up so that they all work together. And there's been things that have been set up already that
well, and plus they're doing a lot of, like, the executive branch is doing more to eliminate the power structure in Congress in order to make it so that the IHR, or the International Health Regulations, and the World Health Organization will be sort of the governing body. And it's not just about health, like, it's about everything, and there's lots of people out there that are talking about, 15-minute cities and things like that, and sustainable development models. So that's part of it as well. Like, it's all in there. And it's also an existential shift in our consciousness, because health is no longer, like, when you say the word health, you think of, like, I think of a healthy person. I think of someone who rarely gets sick. They don't have any childhood diseases. They don't have cancer. They don't have an autoimmune illness. They have all their limbs, So that word is going to be redefined. Like, you're not healthy unless you are doing something or taking something or monitoring something to keep your hair from falling out or your limbs from falling off or getting cancer. Like, unless you're doing something,
right,
which would include an injectable or include a process by which you could be monitored typically.
Right. Well,
so they're redefining it, what it means, like, existentially,
right?
Like
healthful or healthy versus, and I think there were two words that we were talking about the other day: healthy person and a wellness, a well person, or something like that, right? And so, like you said, I mean, these things are going to be redefined, and that's partly why I believe that they're modifying the injectables into things like patches and the equivalent of like a Band-Aid,
sure,
to where you're getting an injection by means of some patch that gets into your skin and into your bloodstream, right?
And they've already tested the waters with, like, the smoking patch and weight loss patches and pain patches and things like that. So that was all a test.
And we're all being tried out, these various technologies to monitor yourself have been tried out, like, Fitbit and, like the Apple Watch does shit like that.
Sure. Yeah. So we've been
marketed these ideas that you have to monitor your health, keep track of things, and that it's a good thing.
And they make your devices, your Apple products, they make them awesome.
Right. Or even Fitbit is kind of, it's like people get addicted to that shit.
Yeah. Yeah. They really love their Fitbits. So, so so this is all, part of it as well.
Well, I saw an ad the other day when we were watching Hulu, and Hulu ads are nothing but pharmaceutical ads practically.
We canceled Hulu, by the way.
We did, yeah, we did. But
there's nothing to watch there.
not right now, anyway. The one ad was like monitoring your. There were two ads. They were for monitoring your health in certain ways. Like monitoring your blood pressure or your blood. It was whatever. It was like, now that you're 46, you've got to monitor your colon or some shit like that. Right? It's like, anyway. So we're being, like I said in one of our videos, we are being tenderized. I think it was the reason. We're all being tenderized to accept certain ideas and certain ways of thinking, and that, monitoring your health is a normal thing. And this is their way of introducing these ideas, and you start adapting them and adopting them. And sooner or later, you're like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with monitoring my health. And, oh, this patch you're giving me, fine. Yes, if it keeps me healthy, but you don't know what that is necessarily. We don't know what we're getting.
Right.
And okay, so anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. Do you want to play the Ashish Jha Biden video, or?
Yeah, I do actually, because I what I want to do is try to really drive home this idea that the United States, and and again, I can only speak for the country I live in. I don't really, I don't know about Australia. I don't know about the UK or whatever, but I can tell you that Ashish Jha is the current Biden COVID advisor. And so he made a statement recently, which people should listen to.
Okay. All right. Let me share that. And
that there are some people in this country who sometimes think that we can take a domestic-only approach to a global pandemic. That's not a thing. You can't do that. If we're going to fight a global pandemic, we have to have a global approach. That means we need funding to ensure that we're getting shots in arms around the world. That there are some people.
Okay, so
We'll bring us back.
Yeah, let's bring us back. So fighting a global pandemic locally, it's just not a thing. Yeah, the language is so unofficial that it makes you want to buy into it, right? And there's so many things that we could use to tear this apart. But the whole idea of, like, we have to get shots in arms, and it's like, okay, why do we have to do that? What? Because they don't say why. They just say that they have to, right?
Right. To fight a global pandemic.
To fight but see, again, that language is nonsense. There's no substance to it. They're not backing anything up, and so many people just buy into it that, this is a preventative, when it's not even that, and it's not even a prophylactic. It's not anything. It's just okay, Julie, I didn't mean condoms when I said prophylactic.
No, prophylactic is,
right.
like medicine.
Right. A means
right.
a means of prevention, right?
So the point is that, the World Health Organization will announce, when there is a health crisis, whether it's a pandemic or something else. And then so how does that jive with the fact that the Biden administration is going to end the national emergency for COVID response on May 11th? I mean, that should be a signal to you that what he's doing is he's giving away the power to respond to the pandemic. He's giving that power over to the World Health Organization. So in deconstruction, we talked in deconstruction, which is a video that we made. So if you're not familiar with our work, please, if we start talking about these videos like they're people, like in communitarianism and deconstruction and lifelong learning.
A couple years ago, we made a video called Deconstruction.
A couple of years ago, we made a video called Deconstruction. And basically what it does is it illustrates how the federal line or the federal level will be removed. And so it will be global and then state and then regional. And that's it. It's going to go global and then state and then your county, whatever county you live in, whatever city.
Well, not state so much as region, right?
Right. And then the states are part of these regions.
Right,
So
right.
for instance, we're in the Eastern States Pact, or the Eastern State region, which makes up New York, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Delaware, and New Jersey. Right. So you've got 7 states making up the Eastern States Council, I believe it's called. And so basically those 7 states are one economy, one sort of policy based on the global, based on a global
governance.
So that's what that's about. And so they're really trying, like people like the gentleman we just listened to,
Ashish
Jha, who is the Biden COVID advisor. Okay, he's the advisor for COVID for the Biden administration. People like Ashish Jha are there to remind you about that. They're there to remind you that it's not Pennsylvanians for Pennsylvanians' sake. And it's not, Albany, New York for Albany, New Yorkers. Every person who lives in the little town of Albany, New York needs to be thinking about all of the people that live in Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Delaware, Connecticut, the rest of New York, and New Jersey.
And then the world.
And then the world. So it's the individual nature of the way that you are governed and the way you move about the world that is being eroded away through this kind of language that we're seeing coming from like the COVID advisor and from Tedros. Okay, so hi, Kimberly. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi.
I'm glad I'm glad you're here. Thank you. I hope you're doing well.
She lives in Albany. Oh, okay. Yeah. You live in Albany.
So, so I wanted to just kind of illustrate that to you. Maybe go back and watch Deconstruction to get a better idea of what I'm saying. So what is happening now is something that we really need to pay attention to. For instance, did we want to bring up the zero draft, or do we want to?
I don't have an example of the zero draft.
Oh,
I do have.
I
have what's her name? Catherine Watts.
Catherine Watts.
Notice of War Crimes, but I don't
have the zero draft.
I don't have that. Sorry.
In the file I made.
Oh, look real quick. Yeah, go ahead.
So the zero draft.
It's not in there. It would be in here. Hang on a second.
Oh, I'm sorry, guys. So thanks. Oh, there it is at the bottom.
Zero draft?
Yeah, scroll all the way down. See right there, zero draft.
Oh, okay.
So I just want to show you the zero draft really, really quickly because Tedros did talk about it. And it's something that you guys should get used to looking at. So what's happening in User Nation, which is my term that I coined for social media, is that people are watching videos and watching a lot of excited language coming out of videos, and they're watching things that create an emotional response. And I did that for, a little while, and then I got bored with it, and I started looking at things like this, which look really boring, but this is the zero draft of the WHO's consideration of intergovernmental negotiating body at its 4th meeting. And you don't have to read through like this 32-page document, but you can do like a you can do like a control F which is fine. And you can type in keywords that interest you. Like say quarantine might interest you. And you can see how many times the word quarantine comes up in this zero draft. And then you will start to read some of the language here that might make you go, oh, wait a minute, that's not cool. I don't really like that policy.
Right.
And then what you would do is you would take this and then you would go to your assembly person. So this is where Catherine Watt comes in.
All right.
So you would read through the zero draft. See how this is very boring and technical. It's not, you're not excited because you're not listening to Amazing Polly and you're not, and all this stuff. You're actually just looking at the actual documents from the governing body that wants to take over your life. So what you do is you respond to, say, your doctor. So this is something that you would give your healthcare provider or your health insurance corporation. And you would say, I'm putting you on notice that what you've been doing and what you continue to do is deploy countermeasures or products that violate the Nuremberg Code, that violate my human rights, that are experimental products that have been deployed by the Department of Defense and curated by various pharmaceutical agencies at the behest of the Department of Defense. These are weapons. These are prototypes. These are countermeasures. And as my doctor and as my insurance agent, I'm putting you on notice that you're committing war crimes. There you go. So to me, this seems more practical than getting into social media arguments about what's what. So that's true. Kimberly Hochul will continue to appeal, these decisions, and a lot of it's theater, a lot of it's a distraction. And she's absolutely following the World Health Organization policies.
Mm-hmm.
All of our governors are. We experienced a coup, so your government is waging war crimes on you. You're considered a terrorist now. That's who you are.
Right.
And so the World Health Organization, in tandem with people like Javier Becerra, who got together in September of either 2019 or September of 2020, and they had something called a joint resolution or some kind of joint conversation. So I also included that.
Okay. I didn't see that.
So let's see. Can you
Joint state?
Yeah, the joint statement. Okay. I thought you put it up there. I thought I saw it earlier.
I didn't.
That's okay.
Okay.
So this is from 2022. And I believe it's when Javier Becerra and Tedros of the World Health Organization got together over a couple of cocktails and said, oh, let's take over the world. This sounds like fun. So this is the joint statement of the United States of America and the World Health Organization on the US-WHO strategic dialogue. And that should tell you everything you need to know right there. So this was this, and this is from the World Health Organization's website. Mm-hmm. So I know that what I'm reading is true. So this was from September 27th of 2022. So it was that recent ago that Tedros, who's the general director of the WHO, and Javier Becerra, who's the Health and Human Services Secretary, got together and had this this little powwow to take over the world. So, or at least the United States, wow. And so Javier Becerra is right now, he's just like the yes man for the WHO, basically. He's stuck in the United States. His goal as a corporate influencer, so to speak, his goal is to get global. He wants to be working at the WHO where his salary can be increased. He could probably leave the United States because the United States is circling the drain, right? So he's like, anything I can do to shore up my corporate influence and whatever I need to do. And so it feels like Tedros and the Bank of International Settlements, who control the World Health Organization, it feels like they are vetting certain people in different countries to come on board and implement global health strategies. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just thinking of this as like a business,
Right.
This is what happens when you're vetted. You start to, shake hands with the people that are in positions of power. So Tedros has a somewhat of a position of power, but mostly he's controlled by the Bank of International Settlements. So the Bank of International Settlements is the central banks of all central banks. So you've got, the United States has a central bank. We call it the Fed. It's the Federal Reserve, not to be confused with the federal government. It's two different.
Right, yeah.
It's not that Fed.
One is a private interest, and
Right.
the other is a government. Yeah.
Italy has a central bank. Spain has a central bank, right? So, or some of them combine different countries, right? So anyway, so the Bank of International Settlements is made up of
all the central banks.
Powerful individuals that would
represent
each central bank. So they all have their own meeting that they come to. And they said, one day they said, the world really owes us a lot of money. How are we going to get it paid back? And so they said, well, let's take different types of national UN-based programs and let's infiltrate them. And by infiltrating them, we can then also infiltrate the various countries that operate underneath those programs, those UN-based programs.
So, for instance, yes, we've all experienced the health side of things, but like, for instance, Sri Lanka was subject to the green agendas, right? The what is that? The UN
Sustainable Development Goals, sure. or even just the green economy,
or
right?
just ESGs and whatever. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the ESGs, right? So they're
environmental sustainable governance, right?
And they basically said, okay, so your farming practices need to change, and we're going to make you farm a certain way that fits within these ESGs or these goals. And this is going to be your way of paying back. Now, I can't remember all the details of this. This is just sort of
I tell the story a lot.
Yeah, you tell the story a lot. So we'll just kind of use that as a thumbnail, because we do talk about it a lot. And that's one way. The other way is that, we listen to a dude who's like an investor, a venture capitalist, talking about how these things are used in lieu of payment of funds, to the World Bank and to, because these things all fit into place, all in the same, way.
Right.
And I am just like, I don't have the details in my mind.
That's okay. So that's okay. Because I think what I'm trying to, there's a couple of different things I want to say about this. So you notice JP just said that we listen to a venture capitalist. We also read the New York Times.
Well, at least their morning email.
We get their morning emails. It's not like we, subscribe to the paper and read all of it, but we do get their free morning emails. Is it because we love them? No, it's because we want to pay attention to the spin. Mm-hmm. We want to pay attention to what's really happening in the world. And it was important for us to listen to these venture capitalists who are based out of San Francisco to know what's going on in the world. Because if you're only in your echo chamber, then you're not really learning anything, are you? You're not really, and I find that a lot in User Nation. It's just one big echo chamber.
So we listen to a lot of different sources.
So
right, left, and indifferent.
Right. And a lot of times I have to get over myself. Catherine Watt is a very religious person. I am not, but I learned more from her this year. And she is the sole reason, her and Sasha are the sole reason why Living War Crimes, the latest video essay that I did, is so popular. Because they produced and shared information that is probably the most important thing happening right now, or the most important thing happening ever. The fundamental erosion of your human rights is more important than anything.
Right.
So,
And that's something that frustrates both of us, is because we will watch pundits that people that we agree with, that will talk around this very thing that you're just saying, right? So instead of going to where, we're, like what Julie's video focuses on, and, eroding your human rights, as it were, and just your very essence of being, and reducing you down to being a slave, chattel, or a terrorist, as Julie mentioned before, because you're not fitting within the parameters of a health directive, right? That you're not monitoring yourself, or you're not taking your patch, or you're not doing something enough to report back in, because you're now a slave, or you're a new version of what they've been calling you all along. Currently we're in wage slavery. We're going to go back to chattel slavery through health initiatives and things of that nature.
I think, and this is kind of where East Palestine and where we live in McKees Rocks, which is where Damar Hamlin is from. Like, we see chattel slavery, modernized chattel slavery, like in real time in our neighborhood of poverty. And places like East Palestine probably see it and have seen it. And I don't think that certain classes of people in the United States even understand what that means.
Right. And we've gone into this before, and through different means of investment, like opportunity zones and things of that nature. But I guess what I'm getting at is that, slaves, they, and we've said this before too, and I've said this before, in the time of, Black slavery, basically, they were owned, they were housed, their health was monitored by the owner. They, ate what was given to them, and they worked and did what
Sound familiar?
Right. So that was, parlayed, or that was changed into wage slavery, where you housed yourself, where you still did the work at the place they told you to work and did what they told you to do.
And you get
but now you were responsible for housing yourself. You were responsible for feeding yourself and taking care of yourself. Now, all that, plus you're now going to have to monitor your health and report back so that they know that you're healthy enough to continue making them money. Right. That's basically what this comes down to.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
And the end, bye.
Yeah. It's so subtle, and it doesn't really feel dangerous. It doesn't really feel awful. But
all the scary stuff that people think is going to happen is probably not going to happen. With East Palestine, we noticed that EPA and the one that everybody's afraid of, the housing,
HUD?
Not HUD.
Section 8 or
no. The
15-minute cities.
No.
Okay.
The organization the government organization that goes in to house people if there's a disaster.
Oh, FEMA.
FEMA didn't even show up.
Right. They didn't even show up.
Okay. So why are you concerned about FEMA, like putting you in a concentration camp?
Right.
When they don't need to? That spends money.
Right.
That costs money for the people that want you to do. It's better to keep you in a place, right?
Right.
Or like a 15-minute city, or your house, right?
Yeah, 15-minute cities are going to be created based on existing infrastructure.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah. So getting away from what I'm trying to say is basically, it's the mundane. It's going to
really
be
the mundane.
It's going to be things that they're going to make you do without you realizing they're making you do it.
Yeah.
Okay. They're introducing these ideas through your Fitbit and your Apple Watch and all these different products, right? And you are going to voluntarily, we're voluntarily monitoring ourselves with a device that we carry around every day. Okay. 20 years ago, I didn't have one of those things.
No.
I had maybe a flip phone.
So the just to talk more about this, sort of global initiatives. And again, there's two things going on. There's a lot of conversation about pandemic treaties. Well, I would kind of already argue that we've had this idea of these treaties with these 194 nations at the United Nations for decades, right? What we really need to focus on is the international health regulations. So during the past 3 years, many mainstream media presenters have taken off the uniform and appear now as just regular Joes. I think we are moving into propaganda
3.0.
3.0. Yeah, sure. Why not?
Yeah. Well, we talk
Yeah.
about, that propaganda all the time. And
Mhm.
so yeah, no,
Yeah,
I agree.
we
I
agree with you.
Yeah.
So
it normalizes the message, right?
right.
Mhm.
So I think that we need to be hyper vigilant and really aware of what our heroes are really saying. And so let's take a look at Marjorie Taylor Greene's tweet.
Okay. Let me bring that up.
It's right here.
Yeah, I know. I have to share it though.
My
There we
earring
go.
came out.
Uh-oh. I noticed you were playing with that.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me bring that up here. Okay. So she says why the left and right should consider a national divorce, not a civil war, but a legal agreement to separate our ideological and political disagreements by states while maintaining a legal union. Definition of irreconcilable
Differences.
Right. Thank you. Inability
disagreements.
to agree on most things or important things. Tragically, I think we, the left and the right, have reached irreconcilable differences. I'll speak for the right and say we are absolutely disgusted and fed up with the left cramming and forcing their ways on us and our children with no respect for our religion, faith, traditional values, and economic and government policy beliefs. Okay. So yeah, that's an easy thing to go, yep, I understand what you're saying. And it doesn't matter if you're, especially if you're on the right and you agree with her. The problem is that this is propaganda.
Well, it's also and it also goes against the core
Idea?
Message that we heard from the right. If you want to, I don't really subscribe to that, but the right in the age of COVID, it was the right wing or the Republican wing,
the conservatives,
or the conservative wing of the country that was saying things like we need to get over our differences and come together because there's a bigger problem here that we all need to come together and face and fight together.
Mm-hmm.
And so now you have a right-wing person coming out and saying,
going against that idea.
And talking divorce. Like what? That's in complete contradiction to what the right wing was saying. In fact, I would say it's probably in contradiction to what Green herself was saying back 2-3 years ago.
Right. So this is
when she was like, we need to come together and, left, right, who cares? We've got to fight this tyranny,
right,
this medical tyranny and this, terrible thing.
And so I feel
now
like
she's talking divorce.
Yeah. And I feel like this is sort of a Pied Piper move.
Yeah.
Right. Where here's somebody who is from a particular point of view and is now going against their particular point of view and saying, you know what, we've had enough and we're going to, go this other way. And we think that we should just break up, basically, and the kids are just going to have to deal with it. And so it's very nuanced. And we were talking about this the other day. And I was saying, this is basically a way of pushing us or guiding us, goose-stepping us into the oven. No, guiding us into global governance. It goes along with what we were talking about before with the whole idea of the different tiers, the global, the regional, and the local, right? You're basically the whole idea. And this is, where the Economic Forum comes in. I think that's why everybody pays attention to them, is because they're marketing this idea of global governance. And this is yet another approach to getting us to accept that idea that, maybe the federal government should go away. And as far as I'm concerned, speaking as an anarchist,
All government should go.
All governments should go away, and we should just basically govern ourselves. But that aside,
Yeah.
okay,
That's hard to do.
We try to talk in context of where we live now, the United States, and a government, and try to just like talk to you guys in this context. So if she's talking about this, that means that she's saying we should get rid of the federal government. She came out. There was another thing that she said recently too, that she was like trying to like get us away from the federal government.
Mm-hmm.
So here we have somebody who has been focusing on like promoting that idea and promoting the idea of like, let's all get back together. The union is now being broken up.
Right.
How can you have a union? How can you have a unified idea? How can you have a unified people if somebody's talking about divorce? You don't have a country anymore. You have, pieces.
Right.
Right. Now, those different pieces confederate, right? But that's another story altogether.
Yeah,
let's come
organization.
back. Let's come back to the idea that this is a country. So why is somebody like her, a conservative, coming out and saying we need to now break up? I think that she is part of the same group of people that are promoting the COVID narrative and the green narrative and the other narrative, right? This is hyper normalization. You've got people saying different things that are distracting you to get you agree to something that you don't necessarily know what you're agreeing to in the first place.
Right. So we've already established that this fantasy that she's tweeting about, how we should just leave it up to the states, right? We've already established that that's gone. That's been gone for a while, at the very least for a few years now, since the COVID operation began. So we can punch holes in that statement. And then this idea, and then of course the hypocrisy around, that we need to have a national divorce because we can't seem to get along, is in complete contradiction to what many conservative, Republican, right-wing influencers, politicians, pundits, or whatever have been saying for many years, which is that we need to come together and work, those who vote and those who don't vote, and whether you are a Democrat or a Republican, you need to put all of that aside and come together to fight, these bigger issues. So this whole thing just kind of falls apart if you really look at it. And then of course we have the woman herself, who I believe, let me be an armchair analyst here, okay. Pretend to be an armchair psychologist here. I believe that Marjorie Taylor Greene really truly believes in what she says, but she also has an echo chamber around her that, is sort of not acting in her interest, and nor is it acting in the interest of her constituents or even the United States or user nation. They're acting in the interest of globalization. And so they will say, we love your idea. That's actually a really good idea. Look at all the examples over the years and over the decades at how the right and the left have never been able to meet. Clearly, you're onto something here. Wow, what an interesting idea that no one has ever talked about. And so they feed her ego and they feed her this kind of, supporting language. Like, we support this idea and all this. Look, and so and really what they are is they're operating on behalf. They're sort of like agent provocateur types. They're operating on behalf of Tedros and the Bank of International Settlements and globalization.
Well, I would even go so far as to say it goes even further that they may have even fed her the idea.
Right. Somebody fed her the idea.
And not like you need to push this, but like, hey, here's an idea.
Yeah, and we're gonna assign you
or let you.
You're gonna be the face of this idea. You're gonna be the brand of something called national divorce. So anytime you see the term #national divorce trending in user nation, Marjorie, they're gonna see your face with your blonde hair, and she's like, "Oh, that's cool."
Yeah, because she's
I'm
a
gonna-
politician and
I'm
she
gonna
wants to be out
be-
there in the cameras.
I'm going to be associated with this hashtag. I'll take it. I'll
Right,
do it.
right.
I'm your man. Right. So,
You know, and I mean, she's been really pushing these ideas. I mean, I'm looking.
I mean,
here.
yeah, there's a whole tweet thread.
There's a whole tweet thread, you know, and talking about, and this is, see, that's the thing. This falls into a conservative point of view and things that they've been talking about and supporting for a long time. So it's really insidious that she's using the language of conservative points of view to bring in an idea that actually goes against a conservative point of view.
Right.
You know,
Right.
with our federal government in over $3 trillion of debt and on the verge of default, clearly both the left and the right have proven together they aren't responsible with hardworking American tax dollars. Okay, yeah, you know, and it's like, yes, I agree with that.
Yeah.
With you, if you have a conservative point of view, and even if you don't, that seems to make some sense to me. But
right.
what I'm getting at is that she's allowing she's using the traditional points of view and language and keywords of a certain point of view, her own constituency, in order to push an agenda that she may or may not be aware of.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
I really
Ranchery in Canada, or is that the term? I don't know. Anyway.
Is that the right term?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that let's see. Right. So I'd love to hear from anybody viewing right now, like what your opinion on all of this is. Like, where do you feel like this is part of our platform is to engage with the people who support us. Some people feel that things like 15-minute cities are like, the number one issue, and that, that should be the only thing that we focus on. Personally, and that's fine, and I think that we all need to have our wheelhouse and focus on that, because if we all are focusing on the thing that we're good at, then we'll be able to punch through, the policies that are hurting us more effectively, I believe. I'm not a very good person to talk to about 15-minute cities, because I kind of enjoy, being able to get on my bike and ride to Golden Gate Park.
We were listening to, yet another group of pundits, the Five Docs, and Dr. Sherry Tenpenny, who I rarely agree with.
Right.
She's
funny.
Sort of the opposite side of where I'm at. She comes out and she's like, she lives in Ohio, but she lives in Cincinnati. And she was talking about Cleveland. And I identified Cleveland as a potential 15-minute city about a year and a half ago, a couple of years ago. Because I got an email from a company that I was working for talking about the investment that's being put into downtown Cleveland on the riverfront, and they used the term 15-minute city.
And then we went to Cleveland and we kind of saw
a little bit of what was going on there.
Evidence of that. Yeah.
Anyway, so she's like, it's a remarkable thing. All the really nice stores and places to go are all in this one little area. And she was talking about a 15-minute city without realizing she was talking about a 15-minute city.
How they took away the cars. They made it so that you couldn't drive through it. And she's like, and then funnily enough, all of the best restaurants and cafes and stores that you would ever want to go to are right there in that area where no cars are allowed. Well, that's what they've been doing in Europe for a long time, for decades. This is a model that is really about, encouraging small business economies, because cars actually take away from the businesses doing well. You notice that if you are say a restaurant that's on a street that has traffic, if you're on a corner, you will do much better.
Well, if you're in an area that is more pedestrian
oriented, more pedestrian oriented. But even if you're just like on a corner, there's all these different schematics that are involved in
factors
involved in keeping these businesses thriving and keeping them open and keeping them contributing back to the local economy. And so all of this was taken into consideration when Europe started to do it. And then they even went beyond that. And so they shut down traffic to, and only left it open to bicyclists and pedestrians. And suddenly you had a surge of an economy in these little shops and stores. And then they made it even more interesting and more like really when you really want to go there, and attractive to the locals especially, and made it into carnivals and then farmers markets, and suddenly it became this really thriving thing, right? And you've got this center where everybody just they park their car a few blocks away, and then they walk into the center of commerce and the center of play and the center of just interaction and being with people. There's nothing wrong with that. But I can see how it could be, twisted and
So
used for something bad.
These things have been weaponized, right? Mm-hmm. So they're, using the ESGs in a way of like turning that very human interaction, very human oriented form of interaction and trade and just being, right? Being with other people and getting out of their cars and just walking around and being around other people, and turning that into something that like, oh, well, now that we have you all together, we can start surveilling you. Mm-hmm. Oh, now that we have you all together, we can start insisting on, these policies and these initiatives that are going to make us money, but they're basically going to make it hard for you to have your life.
Right.
But the incentive is that you can get around this little area pretty easily, and we're hearing lots of stories of like areas like I think it's like Oxford in the UK, where they're like making it so that it's hard for you to drive from one part of town to another because they have different sectors, and you will be, like,
you have to circumvent and go all the way around.
Right. Or you'll be fined if you go into one area of town that you're not supposed to go into in a certain day. And, and I don't know how true or how extensive these things are, but I think that they're, again, these kind of test balloons that they're throwing out there and trying, and, we used to live in a 15-minute city, or in a 15-minute neighborhood, as they would really, what they really are in San Francisco. It had, and we've talked about this the last time we were on, it was like a 98% walking score, right?
It's
so fine. Where it was an easy, and so I don't know why we're bringing this up again, because it's like,
a thing.
It's a thing.
People are talking about it.
And so there's good and there's bad. And I think that this little area that we live in is a 15-minute city, but it's in a completely different way. It's like it's concentrating the poverty industrial complex through the services that serve people who are on Section 8 or in Section 8 housing, on welfare, and have programs given to them, or provided to them rather. But they have to, in exchange, they have to do certain things. So, that's why we have childcare centers here. And we've talked about this before as well. So I don't really want to get into it, but you're going to have different versions of the 15-minute city, depending on where you are in your class, where you are in your strata of income, and what kind of city you live in. So if you live in a city like Cleveland, it's ripe for the picking because it's a smaller city, and they can concentrate that one little area into that 15-minute city. But they can also do it with other neighborhoods.
Right.
And Tenpenny was talking about how there's like these little fiefdoms, that it's basically a small city with a lot of suburbs around. Okay, whatever. Pittsburgh's sort of like that as well.
Yeah.
And it's not going to work in everywhere. San Francisco's ripe for that because, you've got these nice little neighborhoods, and they've all, lots of money there. And, you have these cool little boutiques and cafes and restaurants and shops, and, you can get around from one to the other by bus. And then, you have your rental bikes and your rental scooters and your whatever to get around. And it's fine. But the thing is again, it's like, it's about the exploitation. It's the loss of the commons. For instance, like, I'd mentioned the rental bikes and the rental scooters. These now start invading the places where you normally would walk or or whatever. In the past, you'd park your car. Well, they take away the cars from the area. Now they don't have any need for that space to be used for parking cars. Now they can make money from it. Right.
Mhm.
So these things are all a means of, financializing us and pushing us, into places that are not necessarily organic experiences. So they've taken an organic experience and made it much less organic, as it were.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
But they do it over time, and they do it in a way that incentivizes you to be interested in participating.
Right.
And I think that's what
and
we're
they
gonna
also,
see. Yeah.
well, and then they also, through benign neglect, which is something that I talk about, they make it so that, people say who are living in certain communities of poverty where the streets are still, rubbled out and there's no playgrounds for the children and there's really nothing good. They make it so that these people who have no ties to that community, maybe they were just living here because of cheap rent. They're like, why would I live here when I can go live over there for probably around the same amount of rent money, maybe a little more. And I've got paved bike lanes and cool coffee shops and all this. So they're orchestrating, things like train derailments or rubbled out streets or just benign neglect. They're orchestrating these kinds of things in order to make people do it on their own.
Want to
like
move,
they're not
yeah.
going to ever move you into a
Right.
15-minute city, with a gun to your back.
No,
They're going to
it's-
make you want to do it
Right.
because they're just going to say, well, this is something that Rosa Quare talked about, and it kind of, the light bulb went off over my head when she first said it, which is, no, they're just going to stop delivering your mail to your house.
Mhm.
They're just going to close down all your grocery stores. They're just not going to fix your roads. They're just going to let the homes that are around you that are abandoned, they're just going to let them fall apart and be blighted. And I'm like, wow, that's like the neighborhood we live in right now, and it's working, and people leave in droves to go to a more compact, concentrated block of a city, of a 15-minute neighborhood in Pittsburgh, or
Wherever.
or even Cleveland, which
Right.
isn't far from here. So, but one thing that I wanted to talk about, and then we could wrap up because it's
Mhm.
been a couple hours
It's
now.
been an hour and a half now. Yeah.
So is, it is these smaller communities that are causing this global, sort of globalized interface or globalized process. It's keeping
The
it
process of globalization.
right.
Yeah.
It's keeping it from happening. Like they're having a hard time really implementing these globalization
Well,
efforts.
if people would just stop being people and paying attention and doing what they're told, then we could do this.
Right. So you've got, like, for instance, you've got people, you've got the township in my community that, I mean, they're just like, nope, no nonprofits in this particular block of, now there are a lot of nonprofits, but they're a few blocks away from us. So these, what Sherry called these little fiefdoms, or what you call these little fiefdoms, where you get like your own little community government that really just is
not
sort of
putting up with this shit.
it's
right?
not putting up with this shit. And maybe they oversee or manage about 3,000 to 6,000 people. You see what I'm saying? Like, you get these small little concentrated, they're in Pennsylvania, they call them boroughs
And townships.
and townships. And and each little borough and township has its own, like, bizarre politics,
Right. Right.
and they each have different personalities. And so a lot of them are just making life very difficult for sustainable development or ESG goals. So I think that's where the power lies, is in these small, in places like East Palestine, where the mayor may look like he's, had too many chili dogs and drinks too much beer, but don't get me wrong, he's listening to his people, and his people are like, we don't want to wear a mask. We don't want to be in a medical controlled environment.
Mhm.
Screw that. So So I find that really interesting that it's the people that New Yorkers and San Franciscans make fun of that are keeping this, and constantly condemn and have so much contempt for, that are keeping the
global governance at bay,
and keeping your republic intact. Because we don't live in a democracy, we live in a republic. You guys should understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and coming back to what we were saying before with smaller groups of people governing themselves is more effective, and because we can all make the decisions and rules for ourselves that affect the way we locally live. And those decisions may not be something you agree with. And if you're living somewhere else and you see this going on, it's like, well, I would never want that. That's horrible. I couldn't do that. Well, you don't live there.
Right.
That's not part of your decision, right?
Right.
They can make their decision. You and your community can make your decisions together. So, the smaller approach, is great. It's just that, we're also seeing this being exploited and weaponized. And this is their way of trying to, make us into this sort of global governance strata, right? But to Julie's point, these are also the ways we can use to stop that from happening. Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to thank you guys for joining today. We do this usually about once a month.
Yeah, it's turned into a once a month thing.
Yeah. Just like so much is going on, and I really want to, just take a couple of minutes to hopefully encourage people to, your intuition will never fail you. So follow your intuition, follow your instincts throughout this whole process. Thank you, Kimberly, for saying that. We appreciate your feedback. And I don't know, it's like a phrase that I started to incorporate into our relationship quite a few years ago was, if it's not easy, then it's probably not meant to be, right?
Or in the inverse too, right? If it's easy, it's meant to be.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So the inverse of that is that if it's easy, it's meant to be. And I know that will turn you on your head because you've been told your whole life that you have to work really hard. You have to work so hard to be successful, and you have to work so hard for your freedom. And you have to, you practically have to exhaust yourself in this life, especially in this country, in order to get what you want. And it's actually just the opposite. If relationships are hard, and they don't flow, and there isn't a mutual respect and a mutual love there, and you are constantly feeling like there's something wrong, then they're not meant to be. If you are constantly working to try to
make something happen
or enlighten people about what's going on in the world, and it's just not getting through, then it's not meant to be. If it's so hard and so difficult and so strenuous and keeping you up at night, then change your perspective about it. Make life as easy as possible on yourself.
Yeah.
Go through life with ease and let whatever is going to happen fall into your existence or whatever.
Well,
the good things will come.
Right. And
right?
I don't, this is not just saying, everything will happen the way it should, No, you still need to plan, and you still need to look at things.
Right. Have a plan.
Have a plan. But if that plan isn't working, then try another way and look at it another direction, or just say, okay, well, it's becoming very difficult. And so maybe I should try this a different way. If I want to attain that particular goal, but my means of getting there is not working, let me try another different direction. Or maybe that's just not a realistic goal for me to attain.
Right.
Right. So it's a matter of, planning out, looking at what you need to do or what you want. But, if it's so difficult to get there, maybe that's not something
That's
you
a
actually need.
message.
It may
Yeah.
not be, it's like that that hackneyed Rolling Stone song. It's like, you don't get what you want, but you get what you need.
Right.
You don't
right.
always get what you want, but you get what you need.
Yeah.
You know?
I have worked like hell to try to go after things that I thought I needed or that I certainly wanted. And man, it's just blown up in my face. And so finally I just let it go. And then something else that I wanted to address, and I just feel led to say this, is I was listening to an influencer on like Instagram, one of these sort of like new agey types, who said that you, and I could be misinterpreting what he said, but he said something like, it's wrong for you to try to go after the next best thing. Like, just be happy with
What you have
now and be happy with where you are and what you have. I don't agree with that. Because if you were to come to this neighborhood and you were to talk like that to these people that live around here, and you were to say things like, oh, just be happy with your condemned buildings and your rubbled out streets. Just be happy with these, the lack of grocery stores and the lack of playgrounds in the area. You probably get punched in the face.
Well, but at the same time, though, the thing is it's like being aspirational here is a difficult thing, and it's not always looked upon with positive, feelings.
Right.
It's sort of like the crabs in the bucket story, right?
Right. Yeah. I don't want to qualify it too much. What I want to say is, I don't agree with that statement from that new agey person. I think that if you become satisfied with what you have now, then you become complacent, and that your standards will lower whether you realize it or not. Like, you always need to be going up. Like, you always need to be,
and it's
moving into that place where I can do
Sure.
better, I can be better, I can have better, but don't rush towards it and fight for it.
And
Just
don't make it your
Right.
sole purpose,
Right.
right? You have to look at those things and make sure that they align with who you are and what your values are,
right.
right? And like I use the word aspirational, and I think that there's different ways of looking at that word. Is it about material wealth and material possessions, or is it about you being in a better place of living and feeling? Like, it's not about necessarily having things. It's about being comfortable with where you are in life and what you're doing to make yourself feel like you're a whole person.
The reason that I wanted to sort of target that statement from this sort of new agey influencer on Instagram is because the minute you say that you're satisfied is the minute that they will start to show you how awesome it is to be unhoused, or how awesome it is to live in really bad situations, and you'll be like okay with that. You know what I'm saying? Like, you should never be okay with where you are, because there's an orchestrated disintegration of the quality of life happening in this country, and it's coming very slowly, and it's eroding very covertly and very slowly. So you need to stay ahead of it. We watched it happen in San Francisco. I don't know if what I'm seeing on these multiple Twitter feeds is really true, because I'm not there. So I try to give everything I see in User Nation the benefit of the doubt. But I certainly do see a lot more like erosion of the human spirit. I see the rise of the unhoused. I see a rise of drug addiction. I see a rise of an inhumane thing happening where people have forgotten what it means to be a human being. I mean, they're acting like animals, right? And so there's no dignity in that. They've lost their dignity. And so I feel like this is a signal.
And their autonomy.
And their autonomy.
Yeah.
I feel like this is a signal and a warning to the rest of the country, and we're seeing evidence of it in Pittsburgh too, which never really had this problem up until a few years ago. So this slow movement towards eroding your autonomy, eroding your dignity, eroding just being able to, live upright and have good things and have a nice, well-balanced life. And even if you want to, upgrade your French mixer or your coffee maker or your cappuccino maker, you can do that. Like, you can still live in this refined place where you can take pride in yourself and pride in the way you present yourself to the world. They really want us all to be just kind of cattle, branded and pushed down and compressed. And so I see that happening, and it's really truly happening. And so when you get these sort of new agey, like, guru types who are out walking their boutique dog in the woods going, you should be okay with where you are. Don't try to go after the next best thing. It really makes me go, ooh, no. I don't want to live in a tiny house. I don't want to live in a tiny house like a converted dumpster or, a converted minivan.
Or, well, the movement of the converted shipping containers into
right,
homes,
where they were converting shipping containers. I'm sorry, but I want to live in a house with bedrooms and bathrooms and kitchens and walls and maybe multiple floors,
But
a
not-
certain square footage.
but certainly not, beyond, well, okay, this is a bigger debate, but yeah, I understand where you're going with that.
Yeah, no, I don't want to live in a 30,000 foot mansion with,
Right.
I mean, I wouldn't mind,
Well.
but, with a couple of pools and all that and some servants. No, I'm kidding. I don't want servants, but that would be like fundamentally against everything that we believe in. Chances are, if we did have, quote, servants, they would end up like not being servants.
Right.
If I was in charge, they would just be like cool people. I don't know, hanging out. I would be serving them, is what I'm trying to say.
It would turn into a collective.
Right. It would turn into a collective, like a very bougie collective,
Yeah.
but for sure.
Well, anyway.
But I guess what I'm trying to say is that I feel that we're seeing a real erosion of pride in the country, right? I mean, places like San Francisco, which always seemed untouched, they're this pristine, beautiful, gleaming city on the hill, 3/4 surrounded by water, and, a seventh wonder of the world to take you to more beautiful areas, suddenly I'm seeing it become uglier and uglier and degraded over time. And I'm thinking, is no one safe?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you should be able to still live in pride and have dignity and enjoy nice things and enjoy a nice life.
Well, everybody should have access to those things,
Mhm.
right?
Everybody
there shouldn't be
should.
that stratification.
So I think what we're experiencing now, and then I promise you we'll wrap up, is that this whole COVID operation, it's a deployment of a wartime tactic. And when there is a deployment of a wartime tactic in another country, there is a vacuum, there is an opening, like a hole. And so, like, if you're committing war crimes on another country, this hole is formed, and then it's filled up with bad guys. It's filled up with mercenaries. It's filled up with people with, nefarious agendas. Well, the hole in the United States could be filled up with something good, is what I'm trying to say. This is an opportunity to, and I don't know what it is, because I can barely get the words out. I can barely get the words out to make you understand what I'm trying to say, but there's something there. There's like, when you're under attack and when there's a wartime strategy, there's a hole,
There's
vacuum,
yeah.
And
yeah.
you can fill that vacuum with
negative or
positive. You can fill it with the bad actors or the good actors.
Or just working together to get to a common place, right?
So we're gonna have to figure that out.
Yeah.
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 But I don't ever think it's too late.
Yeah.
So anyway, I hope that has helped somebody.
Me too. I mean, and I don't know. We're still figuring these things out as well, but you need to look at where you are and see. Well, okay, we've talked about that. So anyway, I guess that's it for this edition of Bookmark. We just under 2 hours, so that's not too bad.
Yeah, we only do these once a month, so they
hope
tend
you guys
to be
liked
longer.
And so anyway, have a great Sunday. Have a great week and a great month. We'll probably see you again in March.
Yes.
Okay, and then if you're a subscriber, you can listen to most of our audio podcasts called Footnote. So check those out. And if you're not a subscriber, check out some of the free versions of that podcast, and it might convince you to become a subscriber. So
thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much for joining us today. Have a great rest of your weekend.
All right.
Bye.
Bye. Bookmark is made possible by our patrons and supporters. You can help us continue our work by becoming a patron at patreon.com/bookofhours. Join Rockfin or leave us a tip at rockfin.com/bookofhours, or leave us a one-time donation at paypal.me/bookofhours. Or you can use Cash App. Thank you.